Okay, well, it's really an honor to give the state of the open source community talk with Paul. When we're talking about Odyssey open source software, we're really talking about these two. Most of this is on these two GitHub organizations. We have an Odyssey organization and Odyssey Studies. Although there are lots of other Odyssey related projects or projects working on that use the OMOP CDM outside of this. But this is kind of where our scope is for when we're talking about Odyssey open source software. So one thing that Paul has done at Johns Hopkins is scraped a large amount of data from GitHub. So GitHub kind of records a ton of really good data on all of the contributions that have been made over time, and so we have all this data now in Bitergia platform that uses like this very fast database backend that we can use to query it. In the Odyssey GitHub organization, we have 208 repositories. And we actually have a really wide variety of things in here. We've got production software, we've got proof of concept things, we've got documentation, workgroup files, ETL. We have all of our vocabulary data is there. And we've got things that are sort of at different stages in a software development lifecycle. So one thing that I want to start thinking about in the open source community is how we think about our Odyssey software lifecycle, and then just communicating that and seeing like where things are in that lifecycle. So one thing that I think is important for us to do, and that Paul and I have been talking about, is developing a definition of what Odyssey core software is. And there's many kind of ways we could approach this idea. One might be, the software that we need to run studies and that are like critical to our use case of generating evidence. It could be include things like the vocabulary data or Athena, or things that are just deployed in terms of deployed into a particular environment. I came up with a working definition. So these are just the repositories on GitHub that I felt like is a starting point for Odyssey core software. But I definitely think there is this is a longer term discussion, and we should continue it in the open source community work group. But for the purposes of doing some metric analysis, we need some kind of definition of core software. So using the GitHub data that was scraped by Paul at Johns Hopkins, we can look at the set of core software and think about some metrics. So one metric might just be growth, and one thing that's very encouraging is just the really large growth in the number of people who are now involved in Odyssey software. And what we're looking at is pull requests. So these are people who are actually contributing code to the code base. And you can see from 2014 when we got started up to 2021, we've been steadily increasing the number of authors. We had the number of contributions in terms of the PR count has been increasing as well, although it's a little bit lower in the last couple of years. And that's largely because Atlas kind of drives a lot of this, Atlas and Web API, and it experienced a large push in 2018 and 2019, adding a lot of new features and a lot of extra development, and getting it to a really stable point. So this is the same kind of data just for Atlas. One thing that we want to also think about is how how different organizations are contributing to the code base. So we have some work to do to identify like which organizations people are working in. But organizations, kind of one way that they can contribute is by having supporting developers working on the code base. So the next metric that we want to think about is around sustainability, and this is kind of about diversity. So if we're thinking of it kind of an ecosystem, like one measure of health of an ecosystem is really the diversity. So here we can see over time the different organizations that have contributed in terms of people who work in those organizations. We have volunteer contributors, and then we have contributors who are kind of maintaining software as part of their normal work and their normal job. And so we can see, like in 2015, we had a large number of different organizations. In more recent years, we've had less diversity in terms of the number of organizations, and a lot of contribution from Johnson & Johnson and Odysseus. But one thing I think that would be a good thing to focus on is how we sort of bring in more maintainers from various organizations and have increase the diversity in terms of the different organizations supporting the software. We can pull some we can get some ideas from ecology. So there's a metric in ecology called the Shannon Diversity Index, and this is also a measure of entropy in other fields. It's the same expression. I've been spending some time with my nieces, and if you've ever spent time with young kids, you will have a really intuitive idea of the idea of entropy. Entropy in what we're talking about here is actually a good thing. So seeing this H number increase is kind of something we want to see. If we exponentiate that, we get this number that can kind of be interpreted as the effective number of contributors. So say you have 10 people contributing to a code base, but one person's kind of doing the lion's share of the work, then you really have more like 1 plus a little bit. So this exponentiated H is kind of an idea of like how many different contributors we have contributing to the core software, and the similar thing on the organizational side, like how many different organizations we have contributing to the software. The third metric that I think we should think about is some way to identify bottlenecks. So where are things kind of getting hung up? Just picking on Atlas a little bit, these are like the open pull requests on the Atlas repository, and you can see some of them have been out for a while, and so we want to kind of understand and be clued into if people are trying to contribute to the code base, but there's sort of a bottleneck or some reason why we can't get those contributions added in. So one thing that we have in the Bitergia data is time to first attention. So this is the number of days before on a pull request before it gets some sort of attention. So this is Atlas and Web API, and we can see that the time to first attention is pretty good on the median, and what we want to also pay attention to is what it looks like on the high end. So what are the outliers on the high end of pull requests that get opened and don't receive attention for a while. A similar thing on just the Hades packages. This is a core part of our software. So again, like really good time to first attention, median, and on the high end, we have maybe a month or something in the last year. And this is all while we've experienced pretty significant growth. So growth in number of authors, number of repositories, number of pull requests. So I think all this is very encouraging, and I think these are ideas we can put into some sort of dashboard so we can kind of keep track of it. One thing that I think helps with this that Hades has done really well is just having a central dashboard on the Hades website where we have a clear idea of who is maintaining each package. So you kind of know who's responsible for that repository, and just some high-level information about issues and open pull requests. So that is my that's what I have for State of the Community. I think it's again really honored to give that talk, and I think that it's very exciting what's happening in Odyssey software community. Thanks.
And yes, and so what Adam and I are really excited to announce is one of the things we're seeing is we would like to announce a new program within Odyssey. We would like to onboard a new group of contributors across multiple Odyssey projects as a cohort. What we are seeing is really the creation of an Odyssey way for how we do our process for software development. We see a lot of great best practices developed over the last couple of years in Hades. We'd like to disseminate them, but we also see that we have a large ecosystem of projects, and we have a lot of different technologies that we use, and it now has become a lot to boot up around. And so we would like to bring in new contributors and kind of share with them the whole landscape. And so what this program is going to be, and I just wanted to share now that we've now opened up the application form on our DevCon homepage. And what we're going to be looking to do in this training program is we're going to be giving mentoring to a new group of contributors. So if you're interested in learning how to do open source development, if you're interested in making an impact in our community, what Adam and I will be doing is we'll have calls a couple times a month where we'll be bringing in leaders from the technical community and from the leadership. And we're going to be having these groups participate in documentathons and hackathons. And we're also going to be creating recommended learning tracks. So we're going to be giving personalized mentoring to help you grow your career and learn how to work on a distributed team to accomplish software development per task. A lot of this is project management. So we're not requiring software development as a background. It certainly is encouraged. And if there's a technology that you're interested in, we can certainly help you develop that skill sets as well. So this is a program that we feel is going to really help people with career development. You'll get access to a lot of great technical leaders, and you'll get access to be able to get mentoring in our community. We're also hoping to create a global perspective of our ecosystem for how and build cross connections between our projects, where we can kind of see how our different pieces that are developed in different technologies connect together, and how we can look for new opportunities for creating more intersection there. And we're also trying to create a team environment where you can go through this as a cohort and not just learn from us, but learn from each other and be part of a team to work on as we go into issue triaging and documentation and testing. And this is really where we see where we can help grow some of the future leaders for our Odyssey community. So I encourage you to be involved in this, and I would love to see you to apply. So what are we asking from you for being part of this contributor cohort for 2022? What we're asking for you is to try to make a commitment of 4 hours a week. So this is often within learning and growth activities within many companies, but this will mostly be self-paced, and where we're going to have a couple of activities per month that we want you to be involved in as a group. We'll have a Teams channel where you can connect with. And what we'll also be doing is giving you self-paced learning that you can help, as we've seen from some of the projects, about how to learn about how they do their coding and what practices they are using. So we're really excited to open up the application process today, and we are going to be selecting our first cohort next month.